Well, let's get some more reaction now to one of the major moves around the lockdown announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa last night. The move to lockdown level 1 means the possibility of international travel and at least some incoming tourism activity during the important December holiday period. But it's not just as simple as changing the regulations. The futurist scenario planner Graeme Codrington from Tomorrow Today Global has been watching what's happened in other countries that have opened up for foreign tourists. He suggests it's not all good news. Graeme, good evening to you. So some places opened up for tourists again. They let people into their countries, onto their islands. What happened after they did that?
Well, Stephen, we've got some very interesting insights from places where you can actually have a contained look at what happened. So places like the Bahamas and Bali and the Maldives and Bermuda and Cayman Islands. And in almost every one of those remote island locations, when they opened up for tourists, there was a surge in COVID cases. And many of them had to close, had to switch over to quarantines, open up, close again, and it became very, very, confusing is not the right word, but disrupted. And we even saw that in Europe during their summer holidays with Spain and France, and especially a lot of UK people who went across to Spain going on holiday and then were caught out because the UK government imposed a quarantine on return. And while they were away, they then suddenly had 2 extra weeks taken away from their work because they had to go into quarantine on their return. And I think that the South African tourism sector is going to have to realize that moving to level 1 is not a magic wand. It doesn't immediately mean that all the tourists will just rush here, and it certainly doesn't mean that now tourism will just flow naturally and everything will just pick up. We have to plan for at least another year or so. You know, the conversation and news today about vaccines and how long it's going to take a vaccine to get to us. It's not going to be a smooth ride for the tourism industry, and we're going to expect disruptions for at least this summer season and probably well into next year as well.
Look, we all know how important the tourism dollar, pound, yuan, rupee is to South Africa at the moment. So, I mean, is there any chance of getting some of that while keeping South Africa safe at the same time?
Well, again, I think this is where we are at the moment. We've got to try and do both of those things at the same time. And so we've got to, as far as possible, get the economy going, get our lives going again, but not at the risk of another surge in COVID cases. And we know now that it isn't just about the death toll and the fatalities. It's about the 20% or so of people who get seriously ill and are likely to have lifelong effects of COVID. So this is definitely not a disease that we want to play around with, and we want to open the economy and stay safe, and we've just got to realize that probably is going to mean disruption for individual tourism operators over the next few months.
There's been talk of some sort of medical passport, and already there's an allusion to that last night by the President. If you were going to come into this country, you would have had a test result in the last 72 hours. I mean, how would all of that work?
Well, this is one of the things now where my futurist antenna goes on, because this is what we're going to need next. A lot of skepticism around government-controlled databases. And I think that what we're looking for next is some kind of movement passport that helps people prove that they've had a vaccine or maybe they've got antibodies. And we're going to need to see something like that emerging so that a tourism operator would be able to say, you are safe to come to my venue, you are safe to get onto my aeroplane. And we've already seen in South Africa some skepticism about whether a government-controlled app in just one country can do that. We're going to need a global solution. And, you know, I think technology is well set up to be able to deliver something that will help people to be able to move freely.
Oh, the technologies, the technologists, the ethicists and the science fiction writers are going to have plenty to say about that. Graeme Codrington, thank you very much indeed. The futurist from Tomorrow Today Global. Coming up, Mark Lewis with your sport.